I had put up a post saying that there is a lot of fake psychics out there that have got a much bigger following than the true, genuine ones. And then this comment said, well, what can we look for in a true psychic? And great question, because there has to be morals in this kind of work, and anybody can just claim to be psychic. There's no regulation, and I've said that for a long time, that we need some kind of regulation where if you're going to predict things, then and if you get a really good track record of things coming true, then you can sort of pass. But if you continually get things wrong, but you can't admit that you get things wrong, that's where I feel like there's this problem, and there's a big problem at the moment with people claiming things online, especially saying that people have died when they haven't. And then when there's proof that someone hasn't died and they're there, there's a couple of things. They're either deleting posts, so like making out that never happened, I never said that, or they're turning it around to that's not the real person, that's not them. But if you dig further and ask them, well, who is it and how did that happen? There's never a response. So a really good psychic will firstly work for your benefit, not for the benefit of their following, or to build a brand, or to make it about them. If they're making it about them, if they're all about, if they're all about talking about how great they are, and they're talking more about them, they're just talking. This is an awful lot of talk, but not a lot of growth. If you're not getting growth from it, because what they should be doing is it's your benefit. They are giving information for your growth and your benefit. If you feel fear, if you ever go to one and feel fear, I had a friend of mine that went to an astrologer, this is years ago, and he told her that her husband was going to die. So for 10 years, she was just on edge every single day. She came and saw me. She met me after it was about 10. She said, 10 years ago, this guy said that my husband was going to die. And I said, why would somebody say that? It made you worry? He's still alive to this day, 25 years later. He's still alive. He never died. When somebody says that, it's the ego of the psychic. It's not for the benefit of the client. I just remember years and years and years ago in Adelaide, I think this was in the 1970s, there was a clairvoyant psychic that predicted that there was going to be a huge tsunami that was going to come in at Glenelg Beach, totally wipe out the whole of Glenelg, all the way back through this, totally wipe the city out all the way to the foothills of Adelaide. And he gave a date. Now, two things happened. There was a whole group of people, including the Premier, and I think it might have been Don Dunstan at the time. The Premier and thousands of people went and stood on the beach on this particular day and waiting, because they just did not believe this was true, and they were just standing there waiting for this tsunami to come. And thousands of others went to the hills. They actually packed up. And I remember I was at home and I was in between. The hills were here and the beach was here, and I was in a suburb in the middle. And I was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9. And I remember saying to my mum, because I'd heard it on the news, and I said, why aren't we going to safety? And she said, it's a load of codswallop. It's not going to happen. So she was just really down to earth. She didn't believe in any of this stuff. And anyway, the day came, nothing happened. There was a little trickle of a wave came in. That was it. Everyone on the beach was laughing. All the people in the hills were like, oh, well, we thought we were going to be in safety. We didn't need to. We didn't need to go to that extent. But where was the psychic? I mean, back then there was no internet, so they just totally disappeared off the face of the earth. They caused a whole state to have the focus on them, and they just disappeared because it never ever happened. And that's what I'm seeing at the moment with they're claiming things. As a lot of people online, the way to get a following is to talk about celebrities or to talk about people in the public light. Because if you talk about Bob Smith down the road, who cares? Like, people love gossip. They're interested in celebrity. So a lot of psychics will say that they can channel a celebrity. Now, my question, I just want to question people like that. And this is what I want you guys to do. This is what I would like you to do. Now, when you are listening to them online, question them. If somebody says that someone's come back as a clone, if they know so much, then question where's the factory that the clone was built. I want the address. I want all the details so I can do some further investigation. Don't just believe what they say. If they say it's not that person, they say that someone's died and then they appear in public and then the psychic will say that's not the person, delve into the psychic more and say, who is it? How did this come about? Get as much information as you can, because I can guarantee you they won't answer anything further. They'll give you a very bland, straight, that's not them, but they will not go any further. Don't believe what you're being told. It's to get their following up. I can't believe how many people gullibly just believe stuff without question. So if a psychic gets one thing right and then the very next thing is really, really wrong, still question them. I say to everyone all the time, I get stuff wrong. All the time I get stuff wrong, but I get an awful lot right. I get more right than I get wrong, but I'm happy to admit that I get it wrong. I am fearful of those ones that will never, ever admit they are wrong. They either delete and make out it never, ever happened. They gaslight and say, I didn't say that. That's not the way I put it. Or they make up some unbelievable story, and I cannot believe the people that are believing that. I mean, I read comments and I'm like, there's an awful lot of smart people out there, very, very intelligent people that are not falling for it, but there's an awful lot of people that are falling for it as well. So just use some common sense and don't just listen to what they say. And also, I've said this before, psychics are on different levels. One can say something really basic and generic, like, I see changes next year. All right, that's a very generic explanation. I just see changes next year. And someone else might think, great, I've been wanting change. They don't know anything about the changes, but they just want changes. Another psychic that's a bit higher up, that's got a little bit more detail, will say, I see changes in your job next year. Then another psychic might say, I see changes in your job next year and it's happening around July. And then somebody else who can give more detail will say, I see you leaving your job as a nurse and going into something totally different around the middle of next year. They get a little bit more detail. And then you get more, as the psychic has advanced more and can visualize more and can work more out, they will come up with something like, well, this is the way I work. I will say something like, I might not always get the exact place of work, but I say, I can see you in a situation where you have to go into this building it's like really, really tall and it's got lots and lots of windows. There's cafes down the bottom. There is a franchised food place down on the right there. There's the marble. There's some marble somewhere in the front entrance. Like, there's all these little visual things, and you've got to go up to the 28th floor in this office situation, and the company has something to do with manufacturing, or it has something to do with travel. So there's lots of detail. So you'll get the very generic type, I just see changes next year. It's very, not a lot of information. And when the psychic has done a lot of work and been around for a really long time, they tend to get a lot more detail. And the ones that make up stuff, they come and go. I seen a beauty back in 2020. She was from America. She had 600,000 people following her. She just totally disappeared because absolutely everything she said was crap, bullshit. But people believed it. And there's a few that are doing that now in America. I can see them, and they'll disappear because it's not authentic. So ask questions. Don't just believe what they tell you. Ask further. Well, how did that come about? Where are they? What happened? Ask.